Hello, ISCP fans. Welcome to a very special episode of the Indy Sports Car Podcast. Unfortunately, Frank and Missy can't be here. We wish them well, and Merry Christmas to them. They'll be back whenever our next episode is, the next week or two, and we can find a guest. But I have the great honor of getting to interview Coach Rod Reid. He is a very long time member of the motorsports community. He started his own team back in the 80s. He's been stuck around. Don't know why. I mean, it's not cheap to be around in this area, but a very successful businessman in his own right. So I have a feeling that might help with some of the other aspects of being in racing. But he is able to join us this evening. Welcome, Coach Reid.
Oh, thank you, Jared. I really appreciate it, and excited to be here.
Oh, absolutely. Trust me, the honor is all mine. Reading up your resume here earlier, I was like, wow, can't believe I never ran into this guy before. But it's we're happy to see you're forming Force Indy, the newest entry into the USF 2000 series at the bottom of the road to Indy. And it's kind of fitting that that's where you start, is where you're starting your team, because at the bottom of the ladder where you can work your way up just like any other driver would in the road to Indy, where they start at the bottom and through progression getting better, and you can work your way up, and eventually, like, it's the only series in the world where you're guaranteed, if you win, you're guaranteed entry into the next level. It's a very unique and very awesome series to be in.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we decided when we started putting this thing together that the road to Indy ladder system was for a reason, and I happened to be around when that was created several years ago, and thought that it was a great thing for the sport. It allows us as team owners and engineers, mechanics, managers, etc., to be able to be a part of the sport without the demands of the top level. And for us to learn, quite frankly, to be able to develop that talent in the drivers and everywhere else. So we think that's the best place to start.
Well, the paddock itself is just such an open and welcoming area where even without the support you've already gotten, I guarantee just any new team walks in there and you got guys coming up helping you figure things out. I mean, they're not going to give away any secrets, but it's a family. It's the whole paddock is one big family. So to see it's unlike anything I've seen, where like you look at the Yuncos guys, where they're literally family there. They're cooking out. Like it's an interesting aspect, and it's always something I welcome to see new teams coming in.
Yeah, yeah, we're hoping that we get a chance to get around to meet some folks. We started with just a couple of introductions. You know, they don't know me. I've been in the grassroots part of racing for a long time, down in the go-kart and lower ranks, because I really, really wanted to get kids, especially kids of color, to be involved in motorsports. And just quite frankly, there aren't very many families that have a lot of money to do racing, regardless of what your background is. And then when you start looking at the Black community as a whole, it's really, really tough to find kids that are interested in racing to have family money. So being able to, like you say, learn and be connected to this family that is motorsports is a blessing, and we're looking forward to it.
Well, it's absolutely commendable what you're doing to try to bring in a new, frankly, an untapped entire segment of the population that's never really been exposed to racing. Maybe they went to like a little local amusement center where they had a little go-kart track or something like that, and maybe they found it interesting and say, man, this would be cool to do, to learn how to work on the cars and build them up and eventually race them, but then only to go home and have no opportunity to do that. I mean, I'm the same. I was the same way. Like I knew growing up, I'm like, this looks cool, racing cars and stuff like that, seeing it on TV, but to never have no sort of real family money to be able to get into it until slightly later in life, when I started to save up money and be able to do these things. Where it's like, to be able to pass this on to younger generations always really the goal of the Road to Indy and all of motorsports.
The stick and ball sports that we think of, basketball, football, soccer, uh, those kinds of sports have always had, I think, an advantage to kids. Again, regardless of the background, but especially when you start looking at the inner city and urban areas. Well, you can put a basketball court on your garage door. You can just stick it in your backyard, or you can go out to the park and maybe play softball or baseball. You can't go out to the park and get in a go-kart. Well, you could try it on a parking lot, perhaps, but you won't really be able to get what I think is that the grassroots experience. So when we started, and I'll go back a bit. You mentioned earlier at the top of the show that I've been involved since the '80s when we started a team in the mid '80s. That team in particular we were doing Super V, and we had come from Formula Fords as well as go-karts, but we wanted to really move into the professional ranks. It cost a lot of money. My strength, I think, still today is being one of those guys that could go in and pitch and try to get some dollars. That helped us tremendously when we started. So I've always been a behind the scenes guy. People ask me all the time, so, well, do you race? And, I've been to racing school. I've raced before, but that's not my cup of tea. I love the whole show. I love all the aspects of it, but I think I excel behind the scenes. And so this is that part is a little new for me too, to be sort of out front, the front guy. And, I'm okay with it, but at the end of the day, I'm the guy on the inside trying to I'm the workhorse, if you will, trying to make sure things get done. But going back to what I was saying about these kids that are excited about motorsports and want to stay in it, it's kind of tough to say to them, well, you're going to hit a financial wall here very quickly.
Oh, yeah.
Be 12 years old, 13 years old, and you want to go even karting. Man, their kids are spending 50 to 100 grand a year doing karting, or their parents, I should say. And we just don't have a lot of folks in our community that can handle that. And those that do, that can get involved and show their talent, then they've got the next hurdle. I mean, that next hurdle is huge, even for like what we're doing in USF 2000. It's a pretty strong hurdle to go from, as we say, carts to cars. So you're going to spend, if you're spending 50,000 in karting, you're going to go up to 300,000 for, or close to it, for USF 2000. So we're trying to help bridge that gap by providing an opportunity for some talented kids to, and again, when I say talent, I'm talking about, engineers. If you notice, when we did our announcement, I had 3 guys that came up through my grassroots program that, one went to Purdue and studied engineering. The other went to, IU and studied, business and motorsports. And the other one went to high performance engine school. These guys are really, really sharp. And I'm not saying it just because they're my guys. I'm saying it because I think the motorsports community is kind of missed out on some of these kids, maybe because culturally they're not used to finding them, and they're not part of, as you said earlier, the family. So we're trying to help become the new cousins and nieces and nephews in the family.
Well, and to be honest, like I actually officiate high school football and lacrosse myself, and I used to officiate hockey, and it's between those 3 sports, like it's the effects of finances on playing sports is not just motorsports. Even within just high school sports, there's a huge disparity. I mean, you look at like basketball and football. I mean, basketball is probably the cheapest sport to play. All you need is a ball and a hoop. Football,
Yeah.
start getting into pads and stuff like that. But football is there's money in football. A lot of the schools, like at least even within the public schools, even a lot of the inner city schools, there's still the funding there to help kids along to be able to play at least through high school. I mean, motorsports, there is no high school karting team, or like where you're going to, let's go to state high school karting. That's awesome. Dude,
Yeah, I would love to see that.
I would go
Jared,
back in time to high school if they had like high school racing and karting. Now it's all like iRacing. I'm sure there's like a high school iRacing team, but it is definitely a lot of hurdles just from one sport to another, and even just the access to a racetrack. Like you said, like you can't just walk out into the street and race a go-kart up and down the street. Maybe if you're out in the country where there's nobody around, but if you're in the city, I mean, I'm in the suburbs. Even in the suburbs, you can't race go-karts around there. So you got to find a track, and they're not even. I'm in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I'm not. This is a pretty, I would consider, pretty affluent area. The nearest place I can think of 2 tracks within an hour and a half of me that are even suitable for karting: Grattan and maybe Ginger Man.
Okay.
And actually, I should probably give a shout out to Rob Howden, a great friend of the show. And I did see his announcement of a promotion where now he's going to spearhead the Road Indy's goal to find more teams into the series. So congratulations to him.
Yeah, the when we think about here in Indianapolis, sports capital of the world, so to speak, and racing, we have within maybe a 2-hour radius, maybe a couple of karting centers. We got Whiteland, which is pretty popular. We've got, of course, Newcastle. But after that, you got to drive quite a ways to find another track, up in Mishawaka and places like that. But it's tough. So you're going to have transport equipment. So it's not just the cart. You got to have a trailer. You got to be, maybe a truck to pull it. And the one thing that I think is important for us and those who are coming into the sport, especially at our level, is to express what it takes, and not so much from a standpoint of saying that, hey, you got to have a bunch of money. It's more from, hey, these are the kinds of things you want to look out for, because I'll be honest with you, there are a lot of folks who are, especially in the African American community, have some pretty nice equipment in terms of cars and trucks and motorbikes and things like that. And I think it's important for them to say, you know what, I can buy a nice dually, or I can buy other equipment that I might already want to have that can be used for motorsports. So it's not just you don't have to go out and buy a $500,000 rig to do a team. But I think more there's a cultural education that
STEM education was
good. And then once you start there, I think we're going to see people pay more attention and go, you know what, I could do this, and maybe they can pull resources, which is what we've done. We've looked at pulling resources. We got some great sponsors. We hope in the next few weeks to announce sponsors for our team, and people who believe in racing, believe in the concept, and they like the idea of something new and different. Because I get, as you can imagine, we made the announcement, we got all kinds of, congratulations. We also got some folks who are, quite frankly, a little skeptical. Hey, why are you doing this? Why now? Who are you? Like you said,
well, it wouldn't even say it to who are you. I mean, it's a pandemic right now. Why would you pick now? Now is like the worst possible time to want to enter, but in a way, it's also the best time to enter.
The best time, yeah. So I think the climate, so to speak, meaning people are anxious to get out of the house. They want to do things. I thought I saw heard a statistic that there was more visibility of racing during this pandemic than they've had in years. And I think part of it is people are home. Of course, they were watching iRacing or paying attention to that. Or if they're like, you and I, we were gobbling up anything that we could see for racing if it was on TV.
NBC Sports.
Oh, yeah.
Anything I can to get my fix. Old YouTube videos.
Exactly.
Like whatever it takes.
Yeah, I was getting caught up on some of the Netflix stuff and things that I hadn't seen for a while. So just to get that fix. But I think this is going to be, as you say, maybe this resurgence of interest in motorsports because of the pandemic. At least I hope so. And then what we're bringing to the table, that new community of interest that I like to say, folks that go, yeah, I heard about racing. Well, guess what? There's a group of guys and girls that are trying to move into the sport to bring it to everybody so that they can enjoy what you and I love. I mean, and I give you a tad bit of history, and you might have caught some of this during my announcement. Blacks have been involved in racing since the beginning.
Oh yeah.
And I think folks forget that. They just see because maybe they haven't reached the top levels, so they look and say, hey, do we have why all of a sudden interest? And it's always been there. I mean, there's a really strong community, especially in motorbike racing, in drag. And if you go to those events, you see a really diverse crowd, and I think I think Open Wheel can take advantage of that.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I kind of noticed that in the announcement. You guys are using card number 99.
Yeah.
Honor of
Jack. Did you know any of that history?
I did not. I did a little. I did a small amount of digging, but it's interesting. It's like you said, like African Americans have been involved in racing since the beginning, but nobody really knows it, and that's so sad that part of the history of the sport is lost. I mean, I like what I hope everybody's seen the Willie T. Ribbs documentary, Uppity. That was, I mean, that just kind of grazed the surface of involvement of African Americans in motorsports over all the many years, and it's great to see new involvement and finding young talent, especially like I was saying, like it's the STEM education aspect of it. Like you brought up, like buying a dually truck. Well, I mean, you learn the mechanics and the engineering behind it. Well, now all of a sudden you can maintain that truck. So you buy this truck, and the skills you learned from racing and working on the cars and stuff translates to, I mean, this truck I bought, I mean, I can get another 50, 100,000 miles out of it thanks to this education. And I got to have a hell of a lot of fun doing it too. I mean, have you ever been around a race car? These things are a lot of fun.
Yeah. And especially if you like to tinker. When we got started, my partner in this program, the way we started years ago, like in the 20s when we started a race team, he passed away in 2011. But we had a blast. We we got stories just like everybody else. We have old TR7, which is crazy. Thinking about the British Leyland cars. And that we kind of had as a fixer-upper. And just, we're like everybody else. Had a Camaro in the backyard up on blocks, trying to take it, put a Corvette engine in it.
No, nobody would ever try to do something like that.
Yeah. So, but I think there are a lot of, boys and girls. And I say that because I met a young lady not too long ago who happens to have a background in engineering. And she goes, oh my gosh, I always wanted to be involved in motorsports, but didn't know how to get in it. Yeah. And I said, well, you know what? Let's see if we can't connect you and introduce you around the paddock. And so I hope to do that this year. But there's this, I don't think it would be a surprise to you and folks like us. There's a lot of interest in motorsports. We just have, I think sometimes you just kind of have to open the door, open a window, whatever you want to call it, so they can see in and say, you know what, I think we're okay. There's some apprehension. There's no question about that. I see it with the kids and the parents that I work with in my youth motorsports program. Everything from, hey, we're not sure if we're supposed to be in the speedway. I mentioned that to Roger Penske when we first started talking, and he was super surprised. He goes, why would they feel that way? And I said, well, think about it. If you drive down 16th Street here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, it's a big fence around it. then you come in as a guard station, so that doesn't sound like the place you just kind of walk in and have fun. So especially if you've never been there. So I said, our goal is to introduce folks to and welcome them in the Speedway and say, hey, this is what goes on here. And man, they light up and change. It changes their lives. I think it changes for the better for motorsports too.
Yeah, to be honest, if you asked anybody, would you like to go work around fast cars and just hang out at the racetrack all day and get paid or do all this? Anybody that says no, that doesn't sound like fun. I don't know if I want to associate with those people.
Yeah, that would be a little tough for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was teasing someone the other day because they were saying, well, you've been around go-karts for the last 20 years. And I said, yeah, but I love this, the tires and the oil and all it's this, as they say, the smells of motorsports is hypnotic. It's pretty cool. And but I think just the idea you talked about the camaraderie and people having the same goals. And of course, we're competitive, and that's the one thing that I think people will find out pretty quickly. I'm real competitive, and I'm not doing this to be, as they say, just a welcome wagon. This is real to us, and we're working really, really hard. We're hoping that nobody's going to give us their secret sauce, but we're hoping that we can find a pathway to be successful, because we're just like every other team. We want to win, and we're going to see what happens. See if we can't make it work.
Well, and just the fact to be able to partner with someone like Roger Penske and the whole Team Penske organization, moving down to North Carolina to be near them. You're learning from the best. I mean, that's
absolutely
that's got to be quite the competitive advantage right there.
Well, one of the things that we talked about when we started to build the alliance, and because we certainly realize the opportunity, I'll say it that way, to learn from the best, to be around the best. And there's not a person that you and I know in motorsports that wouldn't, give their left wrench, to be a part of being, under the tutelage of Penske. We think that relationship's going to help us. What I think is, get out of the blocks a little faster. But one of the things that most people don't realize, the Penske organization's never been in USF 2000 or the road to Indy, these lower levels, not even lights. And we talked very sincerely about the fact that they've got a learning curve too with us and into these particular cars. There are things that we can't do to them that the Penske organization may be more familiar with, as far
Absolutely.
as they can do with the engines and motors and stuff. We can't do any of that.
Just a damper development.
I mean, all of it.
Money that they pour into that, you can't even touch. There's not much you can do with it. It's all stock. Everybody gets the same. It's about the most equal playing field you can get is down at 2000, and every level up, you get a little bit more customization, a little more changes you can make, stuff you can add on, take off. It's all learning experience, and to see how they will adjust to it, because there's been talk for years about wanting to force the IndyCar teams to field at a minimum an Indy Lights entry. And I feel like Roger's always been one of the people that was against it, that he didn't like that idea. But I feel like this will help soften him up to the idea of, maybe we can support an Indy Lights team as this is our future Team Penske IndyCar drivers.
I think there's going to be, at least I'm hoping that there is this, we know we have like Andretti and Ganassi, Sam Schmidt, others who are, are in the ladder system with lights, or maybe Indy Pro 2000. I'm trying to think, is there anybody, maybe Junkos, or maybe there's somebody that might be, in all three levels.
Yeah, I think Andretti's about the closest because they were in
Is
light
he?
Indy Pro 2000. I don't think they have any USF 2000.
No,
But
to my knowledge, they
Junkos you
don't.
could say because I believe they span all of the ladder and IndyCar, but none to the extent that Andretti does.
Yeah. So, if you stop and think about how you're going to feed, this quote unquote feeder system, and how we're going to feed the talent that comes through, to me, it makes a lot of sense. And I think it also gives that gives the sponsors an opportunity to grow with these young people as they come up, so that you're just, maybe you can use those sponsor dollars a little broader, because they don't go every place. That there's not duplication of effort at every track. But I do think that throughout the paddock, I'm hoping that we can show, there's a connection between the lower ranks and the upper ranks, and I think you're right. I think the Penske organization kind of gets it, and if they can encourage others to do it, I think we're going to find a lot of success. And then we can get back to where, like, forget Indy Lights. Indy Lights I went to a race, they had 9 cars. I think if we can get that bumped up to where they've got, 15, 16 cars, get into 20 cars. USF 2000 last year, I think every race they had was well over 20.
Yeah.
And I think they even had a roster of closer to 40 teams and cars that at any one time. So there's no reason we can't have that all the way up. I'm sure a lot of that is driven by the money. It's obviously a lot less expensive than than the upper levels. But if we can do that all the way up, just think about the fans that will follow us, and the products that can benefit from sponsorship. So I think it's a win-win-win, Jared. I really do.
Well, and especially you get them in at the USF 2000 level, where you bring in a sponsor and say, oh, well, it's X amount of dollars to bring in at this level. You get them there for a year or two. They grow to like you and the driver, and then your driver starts winning, may not win the championship, but is ready to move to the next level. And you say, oh, you go back to the sponsor and say, hey, I know you're already kicking in this much, but we can get you this much more exposure and stuff, and it's only this much more. And you can just keep it's like throwing the frog in the boiling pot of water. You throw him in the boiling pot, he's going to jump right out, but you start him in where it's low and then start bringing up the heat, and before you know it, he's cooking himself.
Right.
It's the same kind of idea with sponsorship.
Something else that I'm hoping that folks pay attention to. I think we're going to start exposing new sponsors to the sport, companies that have never been in it, either because they have goods and services that are targeted towards a more diverse market, and they say, hey, my motorsports can deliver that. There may be companies, owned by African Americans that say, hey, this would be a good place to get unique exposure. So that sets me apart from other people that may already be spending the same kind of dollars, but just shift it to this sport. So I think there's, like I said earlier, there are opportunities across the board, and I hope the community, the motorsports community and racing community, really embraces this and sees us. Sure, they're going to see us as competition, but I also think they see us as good for the sport.
Well, and I see that already throughout the paddock. Everybody, they all know they're competing each other, but it's still like a family atmosphere within the paddock. Everybody's friends with everybody. I haven't seen a whole lot of actual like fighting and like between people on other teams. It's just everybody knows what they're into and how awesome it is to be able to be in such an atmosphere. I'm just in the media, and I honestly felt like I was, for a period there, taking being at the track for granted up until this year, when it was almost impossible to be able to go to the track. Like, I started feeling like I was taking it for granted. Now I've learned that, like, it's a privilege. It's an honor to be able to
absolutely
go to the track and be able to talk to drivers and interact and stuff like that. It's definitely something that I hope we'll be able to get back to normal next year's. I'm already booked all my travel for St. Pete, so
Good. So okay, you got to look me up. Okay, you got to find. Hey, Rod,
absolutely. I
yeah.
know how to go over the bridge, across the track, to go and walk down the runway at the
There you go.
end of the runway there, and by the jet wall and stuff where some of the teams are. Oh yeah, I love St. Pete. It was
Well,
awesome to go
it's a
to season.
beautiful place. The last time I didn't go last year. It's been a couple of years since I've been there, but the atmosphere and the weather was great and all of that. But I'm also looking forward to obviously being on the other side of the pit wall. That's I'll get a real charge out of that, being able to see that these young people that I have on the team kind of get the thrill of their lives, because they're really excited and they want to, they want to showcase their ability too. So nobody's out there for, as you say, just a free ride. This is not just to say, hey, here's a whole new, group of people ethnically. No, this is a whole new group of people who want to be in motorsports and want to be a part of the show.
Yeah, I mean, I hate when people say like, oh well, there's just trying to label people. I mean, we're all fans of racing.
Yeah, absolutely.
You say like it. I mean, you are you. We all love racing. Who cares who you are?
Yeah,
All
yeah.
that matters is that you have an interest in something, and that's what brings people together.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I hope that, like you say, we see you at St. Pete. We'll see you in Indy. That's going to be a lot of fun. We were thinking that during that time we get a chance to really bring the community where I've been living in and working in.
Yeah.
And I know I've already talked to kids. Kids are calling me saying, hey, I want to get out there. So Indy ought to be pretty exciting for us.
Yeah, and didn't they do something? I can't remember. It was like a temporary, like some sort of go-kart. They have some sort of version of the road course that for go-karts, because I've seen they do karting events at IMS on the road course. So I'm assuming there's some special layout of it. So my hope is that your NXG Youth Motorsports there will be able to put on some sort of a show, maybe like the parking lot or something set up. I'm willing to bet Miss Sarah Fisher in her karting outfit there. If that's, I'm assuming it's still kind
Yeah,
of.
she's done. She's in there on Main Street, and
Yep.
we would love to have some opportunity to work with her and to be there, especially over the winter, because right now our NXG Youth Motorsports has been pretty much a fair weather program. Usually April through September, but we could start a little earlier if we can get indoor, and we got a lot of interest. I mean, the email is full of kids who said, I talked to a dad today, his kid's 9 and a little young for my program, just because we start at 5th grade math and science proficiency you have to have. So it's about 11-year-old. But I was talking to him and I said, hey, I would love to have your kid in the program. He said he loves racing. So that's like what I love to hear, and he said, I don't know how to get into it. I've never had an opportunity. And, I've gone over to Speedway indoor karting and we tried that. It's a little expensive for me, but we had fun. I said, well, that's just the start. But
Yeah, if you think that's expensive, just wait until you want to actually buy any sort of go-kart.
Yeah.
Go-karts. I'm actually looking, like I was looking at the Will Power cart and I'm like, oh, $4,200. And then I'm like, that doesn't include the engine, does it?
No, you gotta. No,
and I'm like, okay, well, that's probably another extra couple grand. And I'm like, all right, well, I need to start putting more money in the stock market.
Yeah. The good thing about it is that for karting, you can get a lot of mileage out of it because, with our cars, we get several years. So you can have that expense stretch out for a while. So karting's still a pretty good bet.
Well, and you can actually kind of see it in Indy Pro 2000. There's Fat Boy Racing there for in there, and not many people know this, but the main reason why they are not the fastest is they actually use the previous year's engine. So they're a testament that like this equipment does actually last.
Mm-hmm.
more than just a base chassis. I mean, tires, yeah, those are tires are
Gotta have
tires. You
yeah.
get some of these racing engines. I mean, the IndyCar engines are rated for at least 2,000 miles. I mean, I just driving to and from work every day. I mean, it would take me a few months to do 2,000 miles. Imagine if I had like an Indy car with that engine. Like the life cycles of them are a lot longer than what it used to be in the 80s and the 90s when, I mean, you could blow multiple engines. Well, some people still do, but blow multiple engines just in a few days at Indy. Yeah, you
And
see
I think a lot of these, a lot of the specs are going towards where you have to use the engines, the older engines longer. And I think that's good for the sport everywhere across the board, whether it's Formula One on up and down. I think people are saying, what can we do to bring the cost down? Well, one big way to do that is to make sure that, I know we want technological development. So that's given. But if we can bring the cost down by saying, okay, we're going to use this technology and this chassis and this equipment over a longer period of time, I think that will help a lot of teams out.
Well, I mean, the old days of racing was like the innovation of racing drove production. Like you learn something out of racing and then you find a way to translate it over to the production models and make money off it that way. Well, those days are just about over, except for hybrid electrification, stuff like that. And the series is start slowly moving in that direction. But now that the days of innovation in traditional gas engines and race cars like that is just about over, the next step business wise is scale, cost,
Yes,
and it's got to be coming. I mean, you've already seen it when Indy Pro and USF 2000 sharing the same base chassis.
Same base chassis, just different with the turbocharged engine. Yeah, that makes all the sense in the world. In fact, that's something that we're really looking at and hoping that as we learn this year and started looking at next year, because you probably know this. A lot of people have asked me, how many cars that we're going to run, and our goal is really to get up to 3 cars. We can have more young people have an opportunity in the car, in the cockpit, but also that gives me an opportunity to have more than one mechanic and more than one engineer. So I'm hoping that we can get there, and it's just going to be a matter of I'm being very methodical. We want to learn, we want to really understand what we're doing, so that when we start to ramp up and expand, then we know how we're expanding and why. But I would love it. I think we can use that same, like you just said, that we get a chassis for next year. USF 2000, they changed some of the specs, so we're going to have a different, basically a different tub, and they're trying to go with the Halo.
Yeah, I saw it there. I mean, it's after the incident with
it was pretty. Yeah, that was pretty horrific. And that young man is okay, but that could have ended in a much different way.
Yeah, it was one of the scariest. It was like a freak accident. I've always described it as it's the racing equivalent of someone sticking a stick in your front bicycle spokes. It's the freakiest thing I've ever seen. But it was glad he's all right, and he'll be back next year.
Yeah, that's what I understand. So,
and I've been blanking on his name.
Yeah,
I keep going through the list of the Indy Pro.
Yeah, I don't remember his name either, but
I can guarantee you, Greg or Frank will step in here to the chat
and say, "I know who it is,"
and correct me here. Yeah. But I do want to thank you for your time. Don't want to keep you from dinner.
No, man, this is great. Thank you so much, Jared, and my best to all back there, on your program and your podcast. Best of holidays. Hopefully your Christmas and New Year are fantastic. You get some rest and be at peace and be safe.
Absolutely. You
both,
too.
Both on the track and with COVID.
Yeah. And I'm definitely looking forward. I'm gonna come hunt you down come March there in St. Pete. I'm sure I'll be approved. The guys there at Green Savory are amazing. They've always taken care of me, and I look forward to getting a good interview with you next year.
Cool, man. I give you a nice fist bump when I see you.
Absolutely. And I should be remiss. I also should say hi from the previous co-host of the show, Mr. Christian Alejeo.
Okay.
I asked if he wanted to come on and help me with the interview, but he actually said he's recovering from COVID currently.
Oh, my God.
I told
Okay.
him to save his breath, get some rest, get well soon, and then we'll definitely have him on the show again at some point before the season starts.
Good deal. Good
Yeah,
deal.
he's good. He's a good guy.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, awesome. Thanks again for coming on, and you have a Merry Christmas.
Okay. Thank you. Same to you, Jared.
Thank you.